What is today Movie Theater Day is observed annually on April 23rd and celebrates the enduring cultural impact of movie theaters and the shared experiences of watching films on the big screen. The date is commonly linked to April 23rd, 1896, when one of America's first projected motion pictures was shown using a Vitascope projector at Coster in Biles Music Hall in New York City, marking a major milestone in the history of cinema. Over time, movie theaters evolved from simple storefronts into grand movie palaces and modern multiplexes, becoming central gathering places for entertainment, social connection, and cultural expression. Movie Theater Day acknowledges the unique atmosphere that theaters provide, large screens, immersive sound, and communal reactions that cannot be fully replicated at home. The day also serves as a reminder of the importance of supporting local cinemas, especially in an era dominated by streaming services, and is often celebrated by attending a movie, enjoying classic concessions like popcorn, or appreciating the role theaters play in bringing stories to life on a grand scale. Movie theaters emerged alongside the invention of motion pictures in the late 19th century, when films were first shown to the public in fairgrounds, vaudeville houses, cafes, and lecture halls. During the 1890s, devices such as Thomas Edison's kinetoscope and the Lumiere brothers' cinematography allowed audiences to experience moving images as a novelty rather than a fully developed art form. By the early 1900s, permanent exhibition spaces known as Nickelodeons began to appear, named for their 5-cent admission price. Operating primarily between 1905 and 1915, these small storefront theaters catered largely to working-class urban audiences and typically showed short films, simple narrative pieces, and newsreels. Although Nickelodeons were often cramped, poorly ventilated, and minimally furnished, they played a crucial role in transforming moviegoing into a widespread form of mass entertainment and laid the groundwork for the modern cinema industry. As films became longer and more sophisticated in the 1910s and 1920s, theaters expanded dramatically in size and ambition, leading to the rise of the movie palace. These grand venues were designed to elevate cinema to the level of legitimate art and high culture, often featuring ornate architecture inspired by European opera houses, palaces, or exotic fantasy themes. Interiors included chandeliers, balconies, lavish decor, live orchestras, and plush seating, creating an immersive and luxurious environment. Studios increasingly viewed theaters as destination spaces that enhanced the glamour of filmmaking itself. The late 1920s brought a monumental technological shift with the introduction of synchronized sound, following the success of The Jazz Singer in 1927, which required theaters to invest heavily in new audio equipment. Despite the economic hardships of the Great Depression in the 1930s, movie attendance remained strong because films provided a relatively affordable means of escape. To maintain value, theaters began offering double features and adding newsreels to their programs. Following World War II, movie theaters faced a period of significant decline due to major social and technological changes. The widespread adoption of television in the 1950s drew audiences away from the cinema, while suburbanization reduced foot traffic in downtown areas where many large theaters had been located. As a result, numerous iconic movie palaces closed or were demolished. In response, the film industry sought to differentiate theatrical movies from television by introducing widescreen formats such as Cinescope and VistaVision, experimenting with early forms of 3D and producing large-scale epic films that emphasized spectacle. At the same time, drive-in theaters became popular, particularly in suburban and rural communities, offering families a convenient and informal way to watch movies from their cars. Drive-ins reached their peak popularity during the 1950s, becoming an emblem of post-war American culture. The most transformative structural change in movie theater history occurred from the 1970s through the 1990s with the rise of the multiplex. Rather than operating one large auditorium, multiplex theaters housed multiple screens within a single complex, allowing for greater scheduling flexibility, more showtimes, and the simultaneous exhibition of different films. These theaters were frequently located in shopping malls or built as standalone suburban sites and featured standardized designs that prioritized efficiency over architectural elegance. This era coincided with the rise of the Hollywood blockbusters, exemplified by films such as Jaws and Star Wars, which benefited from wide releases and extended runs across multiple screens. National theater chains expanded rapidly during this period, strengthening the commercial relationship between studios and exhibitioners even as individual theaters became less visually distinctive. The early 21st century ushered in sweeping technological changes that reshaped the movie-going experience. Traditional 35mm film projection was gradually replaced by digital projection systems, which reduced distribution costs and improved consistency in image quality. Theaters upgraded sound systems, introduced stadium seating, and installed high-definition screens. Premium exhibition formats such as IMAX and Dolby Cinema gained prominence, and 3D films experienced a resurgence following the success of Avatar in 2009. To compete with increasingly sophisticated home entertainment systems, many theaters evolved into luxury venues, offering reclining seats, reserved seating, expanded concessions, alcoholic beverages, and gourmet dining options. Moviegoing shifted from a routine pastime to a more premium, experience-based outing. The rise of streaming platforms in the 2010s posed a further challenge to traditional theaters by altering viewing habits and shortening theatrical release windows. Some films bypassed theaters entirely in favor of direct-to-streaming distribution, while younger audiences increasingly preferred on-demand viewing at home. These pressures intensified dramatically during the COVID-19 pandemic from 2020 to 2022, when theaters around the world were forced to close for extended periods. Many faced severe financial strain, and the industry adopted hybrid release strategies to survive. Nevertheless, theaters gradually began to recover through a renewed emphasis on event films, established franchises, and premium viewing formats that encouraged audiences to return for experiences unavailable at home. The writers' strike also hurt the movie industry by disrupting nearly every stage of film production, from early development to theatrical release, creating delays, financial losses, and long-term uncertainty. When writers stopped working, studios were unable to develop new scripts, revise existing ones, or polish dialogue during production, which is a normal and essential part of filmmaking. As a result, many movies were postponed indefinitely, scaled back, or canceled outright. Projects that were already filming often had to shut down because scripts were unfinished or could not be legally altered, leading to wasted production costs and scheduling chaos. It began on May 2nd of 2023 and ended on September 27th of 2023, lasting 148 days. During this period, film and television writers stopped work after negotiations with studios broke down over issues such as pay, streaming residuals, and the use of artificial intelligence in writing. The strike officially ended when a tentative agreement was reached, and writers returned to work shortly afterward once the contract was ratified. The strike was also created as a bottleneck in the production pipeline that extended well beyond the strike's actual duration. Because movies take years to move from writing to release, the pause in script development meant fewer films were ready for production in the months that followed. This led to gaps in studio release schedules, fewer major theatrical releases, and reduced box office revenue. Movie theaters were particularly affected as they rely on a steady flow of new films to attract audiences. With fewer high-profile releases, theaters saw lower attendance, which worsened financial struggles that had already been intensified by competition from streaming and the lingering effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Financially, the strike caused significant losses across the industry. Studios lost money for halted productions, marketing delays, and underutilized contracts with actors, directors, and crew members who could not work. Below-the-line workers, such as camera operators, set designers, costume designers, and production assistants, were hit especially hard, even though they were not on strike themselves. With production shut down, many of these workers faced unemployment or reduced income, highlighting how the writers' strike ripples outward to affect the broader labor ecosystem of the film industry. Creatively, the strike also had lasting consequences. Studios became more cautious about greenlighting original or risky projects, favoring sequels, franchises, and reboots that were seen as safer financial bets once production resumed. This narrowed the range of stories reaching theaters and slowed innovation in mainstream cinema. At the same time, some studios lean more heavily on reality television or international content, which often falls outside traditional writers' union contracts, further reshaping the industry's priorities. In present day, movie theaters continue to evolve by prioritizing quality and immersion over volume. Modern theaters often operate fewer screens at higher ticket prices and rely heavily on blockbuster releases and special event programming. At the same time, there has been a revival of independent and repertory cinemas that focus on classic films, art house releases, and community engagement. While movie theaters no longer dominate everyday entertainment as they once did, they persist as culturally significant spaces that offer a shared, communal viewing experience. Over more than a century, movie theaters have adapted repeatedly to technological innovation, economic pressure, and changing audience expectations, maintaining their relevance as places where stories are experienced collectively on a grand scale.